More than 4 million people walk through Yellowstone National Park in a good year, and almost every single one of them leaves thinking the same thing. The place was beautiful, and nothing in it was ever really gonna get them. This is not a zoo. Nobody in Yellowstone is standing behind glass, least of all you. There are two of you on the Mystic Falls Trail on a Monday afternoon in May of this year. They were brothers, out on the kind of hike you'd done together for 100 times before. It's a short walk from Old Faithful, which is one of the most photographed spots in the entire park. The trees close in on both sides of the path, thick enough that you can't see 20 feet off the trail in either direction. Somewhere in those trees, something is about to decide the two of them are a problem it needs to solve right now. Well, the man who found you gave his own shirt trying to stop the bleeding, and even he couldn't tell what came out of those trees. Neither could the rangers who responded. It took Yellowstone days to answer that question. The park's got two kinds of bears living inside those borders, and telling them apart after an attack takes DNA, tracks, and a full review. All anybody knew for certain that Monday was this. There was two brothers, 15 and 28 years old. They went on a hike. They came out, cut up across their faces, their backs, and their legs. The helicopter carried them to a hospital in Idaho, and for a couple of days, one of them was listed as in critical condition. So every animal on this list you're about to hear lives inside these same boundary lines with those two brothers were hiking inside that Monday morning. That's not close to the worst thing that's happened in this park either. I'm Mr. V, and this is the Untamed Lens. Today, we're ranking the 6 most dangerous animals sharing the ground with those 4 million visitors. The one that bites, gores, charges, and tramples. Counted down from the one you'd almost missed to the one that has, more than once, ended somebody for good. Number 6 is the Prairie rattlesnake. You're hiking the lower stretch of the park, down along the Yellowstone River, where the ground turns dry and the grass grows up past your ankles. It's the warmest, driest corner of the whole park, tucked up near Granger, Montana. And most visitors never even set foot on it on their way to the geysers. So you got shorts on and headphones in, and you step off the trail for a second to let somebody pass. Something under that grass feels your weight and lands 6 inches from its head. That's where your foot does. And it don't like that one little bit. The prairie rattlesnake is the only venomous thing that slithers in Yellowstone. And it mostly keeps to the same warm, low country along the river, up near places like Reese Creek and Stevens Creek. Every other snake in the park, and there's a small handful of them, couldn't hurt you even if they tried. The plain old garter snakes and the bull snakes that want nothing more than a rodent and a rock to hide under, that one's different. The venom is real, the kind that brings on swelling, tissue damage, and a trip to the hospital. Not something a Band-Aid fixes. In the entire recorded history of this park, though, rangers have only ever logged 2 bites. Even if you're the unlucky one, the odds of that bite actually killing you sits at least in 1 to 100. Especially if you get to the hospital instead of trying to tough it out on the trail with a Band-Aid. That snake would honestly rather you never knew it was there, though. It's not hurting you. It's not defending a patch of dirt around the size of a bath towel. It's the same thing a dog does when it bites you when you step on its tail. Except this dog's fangs are full of poison, and it gives you exactly 1 warning buzz before it uses them. That one waits on you to come to it, and even then it barely even connects. The next one on this list doesn't wait for anything, it goes looking. And it's already figured out that people equal food. So number 5, it's not what you're thinking, the coyote. Number 5, the coyote. You're cross-country skiing the Grand Loop Road in the dead of the winter, out past the Grand Canyon of Yellowstone, and the only sound out here is your own breathing and the hiss of your skis on the snow. You've got this whole road practically to yourself this time of the year. Something's moving along the trees, low and quick though, keeping pace with you. And you tell yourself it's just a dog that wandered off from one of the cabins. On January the 28th of 2020, a coyote did exactly that to a 43-year-old woman skiing that same stretch of road near Canyon Village. It did not stop at pacing her. It came in and bit her. It had to have a little taste, opening puncture wounds and cuts across her head and arm. Witnesses got her to the visitor center nearby, and the rangers tracked down and killed that coyote that same day. When they looked it over, they found porcupine quills buried in its jaw and mouth. A Yellowstone wildlife biologist named Doug Smith, who has studied the park's predators for decades, said flat out that encounters like this are rare, and figured the quills were exactly why a young, starving animal broke every normal coyote rule and went after a full-grown adult human instead of the rabbits that it was built for. A coyote isn't built to take on a person under normal circumstances. It's about the size of a mid-sized dog, and normally it wants nothing to do with anybody standing upright. A starving coyote stops running by the normal rules, though, kind of like a normally reasonable guy who hasn't eaten in 3 days. All bets are off, and the animal that usually gone before you even notice it is suddenly the animal standing its ground. That one's built like somebody's pet and still put a full-grown woman in the hospital once it's backwards against the wall. The next one on this list outweighs you by a couple 100 pounds, and it already knows exactly where you keep your food. That coyote didn't choose to go hungry, and it sure didn't choose those quills stuck in its own jaws. Bad luck built the whole situation before it ever bit anybody. This channel runs on a similar kind of luck, honestly. Somebody stumbles onto it, tells a friend, and all of a sudden more people know what's actually out here. So if you're new to the Untamed Lens, go ahead and get subscribed and hit that like button too, because this list is about to stop being rare exceptions starts being animals that are dangerous on a completely average Tuesday. Number 4 is the black bear. So you're about 3 miles into the backcountry on a trail called Hell Roaring, deep in the northern half of the park, camped out for the night with your family. It's early evening, it's still late out, and the 5 of you are sitting outside your tents, done with dinner, just a-talking. Your food's still sitting on the ground, not yet hung up on the pole the park gave you for exactly this reason. Out of the trees, without a sound, a black bear walks straight into camp like it owns the place. That's exactly what happened at a backcountry site off the Hell Roaring Trail on July the 6th of 2020. An adult female black bear walked up to one of the adults in the group and bit her on the arm and head, much like that coyote did, but that's a bigger mouth attached to the bear. And then it nipped at a child's hand before turning its attention to the real food, which was sitting out but not yet hung up. Rangers rode in on horseback and found this bear still eating the family's dinner. They made the call to put it down that same day. It had already gotten a full meal out of biting somebody, and an animal that learns that lesson don't forget it. Wildlife officials figure black bears actually outnumber grizzlies in Yellowstone by a wide margin. Several hundred of them work in the same forest and ridge lines the whole season, and yet getting hurt by one at a backcountry campsite happens about as often as winning a raffle at the county fair. The park puts the real odds at about 1 in 850,000. Well, that's 1 in 850,000 nights spent camping out there. And injuries from black bears only happen about once every 7 years across the entire park. Black bears would rather eat berries than deal with you. But leave food sitting out, and you've just advertised a free meal to the one animal in this park smart enough to remember exactly which campsite handed one out the last time. That bear wanted your dinner, not you. And it still walked into an occupied camp full of people to get it. The next one on this list has zero interest in your food. It just wants you nowhere near where it's hiding its baby or standing between it and a rival that it's about to fight. That's number 3 is the elk. You're walking behind the hotel at Mammoth Hot Springs early in the morning, cut between 2 cabins on your way to breakfast. You round the corner and there's a cow elk bedded down right against the cabin wall. You didn't see her because you weren't supposed to. She picked that spot on purpose. What you also didn't see, until it's too late, is the calf tucked in the grass a few feet away. You've just walked between a mama and her baby, and she's already coming up off the ground. On June the 5th in 2018, that exact setup put a 53-year-old visitor from Cypress, Texas, named Penny Bear, in an ambulance. She was walking between the cabins at the Mammoth Hot Springs Hotel when a bedded cow elk came up and struck her in the head and torso with his front legs before she could get clear. It wasn't the first incident at the hotel that week. 2 days earlier, an employee working there had already been flown out on a trauma center after her own encounter with a cow elk on the same property. It wasn't the last one either. The following spring, another employee working the same building got hurt badly enough by a different cow elk to be taken out by ambulance all over again. Elk attacks like these happen at least a couple times a year in Yellowstone. Park officials say in spring, when the calves are born, and again in fall, when the bulls start fighting each other over the females, a cow elk protecting a calf looks like nothing more than a big, calm animal standing in the grass. And it stays that way right up until you're standing between her and that calf. Come fall, a bull elk carries a rack of antlers that can spread 6 foot across, wide enough to catch a full-grown man and put him flat on his back like it weighs nothing at all. That one hits you with legs or antlers, and it already outweighs grown men by 4 or 5 times over. The next one outweighs the elk itself by nearly 3 times. They don't even need antlers to do any damage. Number 2 is the bison. So you're walking along a boardwalk near Old Faithful, and your family phones out because up ahead's a bull bison, and it's grazing maybe 30 yards off the path, looking about as dangerous as a cow chewing its cud in the pasture. Everybody around is inching closer and closer to get a better shot, right? But the bison lifts its head. It ain't looking at the geyser anymore. It's looking at you. And it already has decided the 25 yards of space it's supposed to get isn't there anymore. Yellowstone's own rangers will tell you straight out, bison have injured more people in the park than any other animal. A bull can weigh 2,000 pounds and run 3 times faster than a human can. And it can pivot on a dime despite all that weight. In April of 2024, a 40-year-old man named Clarence Yoder walked up and kicked one. He kicked one. The bison reacted about how you figured, and Yoder came out of it arrested, facing 4 charges, including disturbing wildlife. About 6 weeks later, an 83-year-old woman from Greenville, South Carolina, got a bison's horns under her near Yellowstone Lake and was lifted a foot off the ground before she hit the dirt. Just this June, a 12-year-old boy was hurt the same way up near Mud Volcano. And this past July, a bull bison at a campground south of Fishing Bridge hooked a man with its horns and threw him 8 feet into the air right in front of his own grandson. For no better reason than the bison had already decided it didn't like anybody standing near it that day. What makes the bison different from almost everything else on this list is simple. It ain't hiding and it ain't shy. It grazes right next to the parking lots and naps beside the boardwalks, looking exactly like the world's largest, laziest cow, right up until it turns into a 200 pounds of muscle covering 30 yards faster than you could finish reading this sentence or saying it. A study that tracked the park's records over 16 years counted 25 people hurt by bison, and that was already a big drop from the stretch of years before. The number goes down some years and climbs in other years, but the animal responsible for most trips to the hospital in Yellowstone was never once changed. Bison have put more people in Yellowstone hospitals than anything else that lives here, and nearly all of them recover and go home. The last animal on this list barely touches that many people in a given year. When it does, the outcome isn't always a hospital stay. Number 1, the grizzly bear. You're hiking along on the Turbid Lake Trail off towards the northeast corner of Yellowstone Lake because you know these trails and you've done this 100 times without a problem. Coming around the bend, there's a grizzly bear a few yards off the path, already feeding on a elk carcass. And it looks up at you like exactly like the ranger, where neither one of you has anywhere to go. This happened to a 29-year-old man on September the 16th of 2025, just last year or so. He got his bear spray up in time and used it, though he couldn't say for sure if any of it actually hit the bear. It bit him a couple of times anyway and took off into the trees. He hiked himself out under his own power. His chest and arm were torn open, and he lived to tell about it. By grizzly standards, that actually counts as one of the better outcomes. The park's own records show 44 people injured by grizzlies since 1979. Somewhere around 150 to 200 of these bears call the park itself home at any given time, out of the more than 1,000 spread across the wider region around it. And this year, the warm winter woke them up early, weeks ahead of schedule, hungrier and out on the trails sooner than the rangers were ready for. Most of what a grizzly does out here, you never see and never need to worry about. It digs roots, fishes, and naps through the hottest part of the day like anybody with sense would. Every one of these bears turns dangerous under one specific circumstance. You surprise one at close range, or you get between a mother and her cubs, and there's no version of that animal that backs down out of politeness. A grizzly can hit 35 miles an hour in a flat sprint and close its jaws with enough force to crack bone the way you'd crack a walnut. Killing somebody inside this park is rare enough for a grizzly that the record only holds a small handful of names across a century and a half. Rare doesn't mean never, though. You know how that works, right? On August the 7th of 2015, a 63-year-old man named Lance Crosby went hiking alone, off trail, without bear spray, in the Lake Village area of the park. He'd worked 5 summers for the company that runs the park's medical clinics, and by then he knew his ground about as well as anybody who's ever walked it. He didn't show up for work the next morning. The ranger found his body that afternoon, about a half mile off the Elephant Back Loop Trail, in an area he was known to wander on his own. Signs at the scene showed a mother grizzly and her cub had been there first. Rangers set traps that same night. They caught the bear responsible. It never left that trap alive. If you like this episode, go ahead and give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss the next episode of the Untamed List. I'm Mr. V, and I'll see you in the next one.